Is Instagram awesome or a hellscape?
Both. Love it, hate it, obsessed with it, the bane of my existence.
In today's episode of Energy Untold, I'm joined by Shannon Norberg. Shannon is one of the co-founders of Norberg Hall, a local gallery here in Calgary that represents emerging artists. We talk about the Sobey Art Award, art in general, as well as a little bit of social media. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Shannon Norberg. So, Shannon, what brought you to Calgary?
No, edit. That's the part that gets cut out. I know the person will watch and be like, this is now about me.
Shannon Norberg.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for thinking of me. And doing your inaugural show.
How do you know it's inaugural?
Well, maybe it does come out the 2nd or 3rd, or maybe it doesn't come out at all. That's
We don't know.
We don't know. Yeah, we're really early stages.
I don't know where to start.
You clearly.
How about this?
Yeah.
What is Norberg Hall?
What is it? Ooh, that's good. We are I often say I'm the Norberg, my husband's the Hall. And so we're a contemporary commercial gallery in Calgary. We also have a framing shop. We work with emerging mid-career and established artists from across Canada and help facilitate both their careers and collectors.
Okay. I was wondering about this. How many years do you have to study art history in order to walk through the doors of Norberg Hall?
I would say no years of studying art history, for sure. I mean, no years. But I do think like visiting galleries and viewing art is like a mini art history lesson in itself. I would like to think that we teach something as we walk through the work with collectors and build audience and have discussions about it. But the art history part, I think we have and are able to bring that to the viewer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess how do you make it more accessible for folks just to walk in and feel comfortable?
That's something that we've been trying to work on for a number of years. I don't think that we have many, I should hope we don't have many barriers that people don't feel as though that they're welcome. But I do understand that that is historically a thing, that people don't feel comfortable that they can walk through the doors of a commercial gallery, that it feels like the white box, and that in some way they're not able to partake in the conversation or even partake in the viewing and possibly not partake in the acquiring, but that's fine. The door is open to everyone, and never judge a book by its cover. We want to be able to bring everyone in and bring the work to everyone at the same time.
Yeah. Maybe backing up a little bit. I haven't really found a great definition of this, so maybe you can help me out. What is art?
Oh no, Corey, that isn't I gotcha. What is art? I think art tells a great story. Maybe I'll just say what I firmly believe is that to not get caught up in the aesthetics of art, but to dig deeper into the story. I think the story of what it is and what it's saying and who the artist is and what they're trying to get across holds viewer longer and has more legs, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But whether that's an answer to what is art, it's a hard one. It can be things to a lot of people, and it can cross barriers and mediums and dance. I mean, most people go to school for a Bachelor of Arts, and that encompasses a lot of things.
Yeah.
And artists' careers and practices change, that they incorporate so many different things. So whether it's literature or whether it's dance or audio, and all of that has to be taken into the mix. Does that sort of answer it?
Yeah. It's like it's this one of these weird, like very open-ended definitions. Right?
Yeah, it is. And what is it to you? Because it's not the same thing to somebody else. And that goes with collecting too. Like, I often say it might sound elitist in a way. There's art with like a little a and a capital A.
Yeah.
And I would think no disses to the Sunday painters, but there's something different when a person dedicates their entire life to it and jumps in wholeheartedly. They live, breathe, eat it, and sometimes not eat because of it.
Yeah.
And that is often what I consider the capital A.
I guess you did ask me a question. Maybe I should answer it. You asked me what I thought it was.
Oh, yeah, and? Yeah, what does it mean to you?
Well, I think the story part is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I think all the different mediums offer up a way for us to express ourselves in ways that just words can't, or the written word can't, or so we need all these mediums. We need music. We need the visual arts. We need dance, and they can communicate a story or a feeling or an emotion in a way that, like other mediums can't.
Video maybe can't, but
Yeah.
video is also then part of an art form as well.
Sure.
And is it I think too, to further to that point, is like artists often don't like to write and like to put word to it. They write their artist statements and they get asked for them, but often the work is what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
And so everything that they're trying to say is already out in the medium, and often then that's why you have writers that speak to the work, or they work with the artist, they put words to it, or myself included, through conversation that we have that I can then share. That's where kind of the community and the ecosystem of an artist and an artist's career and practice grows beyond just the artist.
Yeah, what's the process for that? Because it's like you need the writer to understand the work somehow, but then the artist has difficulty communicating the work in words. Like, so I guess it's just a back and forth. It's
It
like, oh,
is.
yep, that's it. Or
Yeah, I think that we try to pair young writers with artists because, one, we want to also nurture young writers or writers in general to speak or to write about the arts. And so with that, they have Zooms, they have meetings, they do studio visits, and through those conversations, they're intimate conversations, they then produce something regarding the work that kind of give it a little bit more access to it. I mean, titles are great for work, explanations, descriptions are great for work, but adding a little more helps tell that story and gives it, I wouldn't say more substance, but more accessibility and understanding.
given the story is so important, like how do you view something for the first time? Do you want to know the backstory? Can you just look at something independently and then you go seek out the story afterwards? Like how does that interplay?
Well, I would consider myself to be a visual person. Like, I have, I mean, it's not to toot your own horn, but that is what I realized early days was my thing, or maybe my specialty, is that I could see something and had or have confidence in what I see. Then having those conversations builds upon it. Maybe off track to that is one of the things to what the gallery does, what museums do, is that you see the work and you don't quite get it. And I know I've said this for years, is like by exhibiting the artist's work over and over again, you start to read what it is they're saying. So you start to understand there's a vernacular to it, there's a visual symbolism to it, that you recognize their work. No different than how you can recognize a Picasso and how you can recognize historically other artists' work. It's because it's been put in front of you time and time and time again. And then eventually you're able to pick it up and understand it yourself.
How would you define good taste in art?
Oh, that one's tough because you don't want to sound like an asshole. How do I? That's a tough one. I might have to pause on that. Good taste.
Because there is bad taste.
There's bad taste.
If there's bad taste, there must be good taste.
There is good taste, and good taste doesn't necessarily...
doesn't mean expensive.
Doesn't mean expensive, and doesn't mean also somebody with money necessarily has good taste. They don't go hand in hand.
Do you think it can be learned?
I think it can. Oh, do I stand behind that statement? Do I think it can be learned? That's...
You haven't seen any evidence of it?
I don't know. I'm literally going through my head right now going, that is another stump. I'm going to have to come back to that. No, I would say that, yes, I do think it can be.
Through a little bit of education.
Yeah, a little bit of education. And maybe it's not in the taste, it's the education. And maybe if we remove those two, they're two separate things that one we attribute to the other. But I think continuing to immerse yourself in something, you start to pick it up. And so I think people have built their collections that way, in a great way. Working with reputable galleries, visiting museums, reading magazines regarding to art or art literature. You can have it directed in a way that I think, whether it's taste or not, it's perhaps enlightenment.
Enlightenment.
Sounds profound, but it's something, there's something more to it, I would say.
Yeah. I was curious about this. It's nothing we've ever talked about before. Walk me through the process of how an artist comes to be represented at Norberg Hall. Like, how do you find them?
I'm constantly looking. So I'm just going to back up.
How do they find you?
Yeah. I would say, just backing it up a little bit, we represent about 18 to 20 different artists.
Yeah.
So, and I will say, Jarvis and I, for a number of years, have always said we would like to have a smaller roster because you only have so much time in life and within work and capacity and ability. And so with a smaller, more boutique idea of that, you can really get behind it. And that was always the thought to begin with. And I do think that you learn over time, too, by working within something and realize that there's reasons why galleries have big rosters and work with so many artists and represent different styles and different ages and different points in careers. And our model in particular, early days, has always been to uphold more gender equity and equality. So have a more diverse roster. And that stems back to a couple of things. One in particular was when I went to art school, I noticed that I went to school with like 70% of women. And then when I got out of school, where did the women go? And they weren't represented by galleries, and but they were doing administrative work. But they weren't on the walls. And that part was shocking because they were in all the studios with me.
How broken is that still?
It's still pretty broken, but I do think it's getting a bit better. But there's reasons why I think it's still broken. So I would say for the past, at least 10 years probably, that we've maintained that we've always had 50% women within the roster. And there's a reason why I would say that it has always been in that way, that it has been predominantly 70% men very little women, and that's because historically men have always sold more. So dealers would represent more men because there's more money to be had, and therefore you build their careers that way. So it was broken, and it was something both Jarvis and I wanted to change. So we have been actively doing that, and through that, giving opportunity to people that weren't on walls and now are, and now in museums, and now getting accolades and awards. We watch that. I don't want to use the word payoff, but it has.
The thesis is correct.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and there's like various misconceptions about like how great change is. There's always usually things done around International Women's Day or Women's Month. And it's like, but it's 12 months of the year, and we are 50% of the population. So where are we the other 11 months, and where are we the other times of the year? And so that's something that, you know, we're watching that it has changed, and we'll keep striving for that. But a lot of the artists have been. We get lots of artists that come to us, and galleries generally do get artists that come to them. I wish that we could work with more. I wish we had more capacity. I wish we had more wall space. I wish we had more storage. I wish all of these things so that we could be bigger or could work with more. But unfortunately, you have to know what your own limit is as well.
Yep.
And perhaps that changes, but it's something that we actively go out and pursue for the most part.
Okay. So, from the time that an artist is discovered, and actually, like, how important is it that you have a good relationship with the artist?
I would hope that I have a really good relationship with the artist, because you do work intimately with them. You speak to their most, you speak about their most intimate work and stories and feelings and emotions, and you take that onto a stage and you share it, whether it be just on the wall or social media or website, or you push the story or carry the story forward. So, and you want to do it in the most respectful way to ensure that you maintain that relationship and nothing breaks down. But it would be similar to an agent working with a musician, I would think.
Yeah. And then so from that first point where an artist is discovered, you're like, okay, yeah, it makes sense to work with this person.
Yeah.
How long before their work is on the wall at the gallery?
I wouldn't say that I even discover work. I mean, artists are always working. It's just something I myself have to continue to return to look at where they're at and see if it speaks to me, and if there's growth, and if there's potential, and if there's where it's going. And also, I mean, there's artists that are already established, and then we start working with them. It's more common that we would start working with an artist that's more at the emerging level. So, but to your question again, which I'm sure I've lost it, how long it takes before it gets onto the wall?
Like 18 months, 12 months,
Yeah,
6
let's
months?
say 12 months, 6 months to 12 months. It depends. I mean, normally a gallery is, at least a commercial gallery, we're about a year out in planning, sometimes up to 18 months. So it takes some time. Exhibitions last about a month and a half. You can only rotate the shows every so often. But you can still start working with the work in different ways too in the meantime, to start introducing the work to people. Yeah.
How do you build a schedule?
Oh, you look at the calendar and then you try and make all the moving parts. And sometimes the moving parts are hard, especially if artists, where they are across the country, what their exhibition schedule is in various locations. If you have to borrow work back from it, it's a bit of a game. And I'd like to be I'm a planner. I like to have it laid out in advance because I don't like surprises. So when sometimes something falls out, I will say, though, there's been some great things that happen when you are able to be a little more free and not rigid.
Yeah.
That you have to become, you have to go outside of your comfort zone and go, okay, I'm going to take a chance on this. Let's look at this. Let's work with this. And it works out. So as a reminder to myself or ourselves, that let some of that happen. Because sometimes work is just immediate and you're like, oh my gosh, what you're working on right now, this needs to be seen. We've tried to separate the gallery into two spaces. So there's a main area and then we have what we refer to as upfront. And the upfront space is a bit of a flip on the old dealer's notion of like what they've got in the back room, except Jarvis and I are pretty transparent people, so we joke that it's up front, not in the back.
Yeah.
And so that work also, if an artist is working on something and say they've only created 7 pieces, but they're really trying to work out their ideas in the meantime, it still deserves to be seen, but it might take 18 months before the entire exhibition is able to go on the wall. By that time, it could also be stale. And they just go,
Stale for them or for...
Twofold. They could have... we could have a show by an artist already in the schedule for the big gallery, and that is locked in. But they could be working on something else in the meantime, and it could be something that needs to be investigated and just seen, and it adds to the conversation as a whole for the bigger work.
Mm-hmm. Are you conscious about, within the big gallery space, like what shows are kind of back to back?
Yes, actually. And I think that has to do with the considering equity, and going, what is the roster like? We do try to look at what is coming down the line, as well as what looks good together up front versus what's in the main space. Maybe it's a 2-person show, maybe it's a group exhibition. We do, if you're going to make a statement that you're going to build upon gender equity and diversity, then you do have to take those numbers in those 12 months into consideration.
Yeah, you have to be serious about
it. You have to be serious about it, and you have to live by what you're stating.
Yeah. Is Jarvis a good business partner?
He is. I'm insane, and he is not. I mean, you find a good partner that can balance the other side.
Is it fun to have a business partner?
Yes, because every once in a while, the other one has to take time out to just... We deal with different parts, and when one is down, the other can lift up. I think there's something great in that.
Yeah.
I often joke, within our personal lives, is that we are business partners and we're partners in life. And so you wake up together, you have your coffee together, you go to work together, and then you come home together, you make dinner together, and then we go to separate floors. It's like you have your time out there and I'll have and then you can come back together. And because you need that, you need the balance of, but we also know we also know what the other's strength is. So if he's not comfortable in something, he'll take a back step and go, oh, this is where you're at. And when I know that I can't do that, he goes forward, and it's a nice balance in that sense too.
If a friend comes to you and says, I want to start a business, what do you say to them?
Oh, I mean, it's not the easiest. However, it's there's the pluses and minuses to it. I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't know if I could do it any other way.
Yeah.
It takes, it might only be 2 people's names over the door, but you do have to realize that it takes other people to get those 2 people's names over the door. And so we recognize that and try to work with good people. But the business part can be hard because I think also in the arts, I've talked to other creatives, is that a lot of us have gone to school for a Bachelor of Fine Arts in painting or design or masters, and then we come out and we're business owners, and none of us have any business schooling. And so we're kind of...
I'd argue that business school doesn't really teach you how to be an entrepreneur.
Really?
Anyway, no.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, there is, but I would say it has to help. At least it doesn't determine, and actually numbers don't determine what it is that we inevitably do, and maybe that's terrible as a business person.
No, I don't think so.
It-
No, I like not in this respect. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because it needs to be for something to be good like this. I think it has to be an expression of who you are.
Right. And I think you and I have spoken too, is that if you start making those changes, and I mean, comparison really is the thief of all joy. And so you look at somebody else and what they're doing, and you're like, why isn't that me? And, Jarvis and I will have those conversations at home and work, and you and I, in that, but is that what you want to be? Is that what you want to show? Is that what you want to do? Because
Is that who you want to spend time with?
is that what you want to align with? And so there is I guess that's back to the whole thing of women and diversity being underrepresented for a number of years.
Yeah.
And so there's a financial hit that would have been taken all those years ago, and to a certain degree still sort of is, but I can rest my head at night knowing that I'm happier doing that than something else.
Yeah. Yeah, that still just feels so upside down to me.
Yeah.
It'll even out.
I hope
Surely.
so. I hope so. I think you just have to continue at it. Like, I don't think we're changing anytime soon.
No.
And that's not to say that there's not great men out there. It's just to say there's great women and non-binary artists that
Yeah.
also deserve to be seen and heard and acquired
Yeah.
and exhibited. So,
I wanted to, speaking of business being hard, I want to ask you about what's different now than pre-COVID and kind of what's the same. Or is like everything kind of followed the same arc and that was a little bit of a blip and then we're kind of back to normal? Or did everything kind of change and shift?
we oddly did very well through COVID. I would think a lot of galleries would actually say maybe, I don't know. I take that back. If there's an edit, that's the one. I think that we did all right during COVID, and part of that being that many people were stuck in their houses, and I understand there are those that are not adding to collections, and they're just trying to keep the doors open and trying to put food on the table.
Yeah.
There were also that were like, well, now I do business out of my house. And so I have nothing on the walls. How do I support small business? How do I support artists? And so there was work that was going out at the time. Like many people, we had to just pivot and go online. But we still did the exhibitions as if you were walking through the door. So we shared all the information that often isn't shared.
And basically, you've maintained that.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
We've tried to break down all the barriers that even if you can't come through the doors, and maybe that's just because the audience has become wider and people are acquiring from across the country and the States and the UK, that if you take those barriers down and you allow people to see whether they're able to and want to purchase artwork, that they can.
Yeah. How would you describe how something changes, like art on the wall changes the space, changes the vibe of a space, and maybe even just from your own experience in your own home, right?
Yeah.
So in theory, you'd be either switching stuff out or just like adding upon adding, or
And we rotate.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same as being at a gallery in a museum. When you place two artworks side by side, they have a conversation. It's the same within your home and within your office and within all over the place. So sometimes we just move them around, and based on that story that's being told within the work, they can start having a dialogue, and it changes the way the room is. The feeling.
Have you had something up and you're like, no, this is wrong, like a week later?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Actually, yes. Jarvis and I rehang the house quite frequently. We do have, he comes from a family of artists too, so we both have a number of works. And so, yeah, we rehang and go, no, I don't want to see this, and I don't want to see that in the background either. So there's a visual symmetry that should also go on in the room, I think.
Yeah.
Just like these cups. It all works, right?
We try.
We try.
There's a quote I wanted to run by you.
Okay.
So this is from The Value of Art from by Michael Finley,
Okay.
a book that I've quite enjoyed the past couple of years. And at least for me, I think it's accurate, but I'm curious to see if, your thoughts. So this was kind of at the start of the book. A collector has one of three motives for collecting: a genuine love of art, the investment possibilities, or its social promise. I have never known a collector who was not stimulated by all three. For the full joy and reward, the motivation must be a love of art, but I would question the integrity of any collector who denies an interest in the valuation the market puts on his pictures or her pictures.
Mm-hmm.
The social aspect is another never-ending regard. From Rome to Tokyo, our interest has brought unexpected and unbelievable experiences and friends as full of vitality, imagination, and warmth as the art they collect. So that quote was from Emily Hall Tremaine. And she was a lifelong collector. Do you agree with this? Like this kind of like three-tenant reason to acquire something or to collect something? Or is there something different in there in the mix?
Well, I would consider myself a collector, and I don't use all those things.
Yeah.
So getting back to that story or that idea of what is it saying to me, but also, I guess I don't look at the number, which is weird because I set them. This is see, here's that therapy session. But again, maybe that's I would be the anomaly because back to that tastemaking.
So you've never acquired something with the thought of like
what is it going to go for?
Yeah.
Jarvis and I play this game. It's a bit like a fantasy football. It's like if you had X amount of dollars, what would you buy right now? Purely on the sake of where it's going to go, and I can never answer it.
You can never answer it.
I can never answer it.
Can he answer it?
He's given a few names, but I don't know if we agree on them. But I can't answer them because I also think that I don't know the answer to. I mean, it's like
but you kind of
number.
Do. You've been in the market now for several years,
yeah.
And you can go back and say, "Oh, I was right about that."
Right about. Yeah, but I find it different that somebody getting accolades and attention is different than somebody's numbers going up, and I don't think that they necessarily match.
Shouldn't they over time, though?
They can, but I work with
or just
artists
take a while. It does.
For a lot of the artists that we work with, they're emerging in mid-career, so those numbers come often at the very end of their careers and when they're past.
Mm-hmm. Are we going to see artist revenue rights?
Oh, I hope
in Canada.
So.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope that.
Maybe we should walk through what that actually is.
Oh gosh.
I guess just put simply something
gets resold and put into the secondary market, that artist who sold it at $500 20 years ago, now when it sells for $250,000, that they're going to get part of that $250,000.
Yeah.
Because their career has done this. Now, that means even if the artist has passed away, that the estate would have a percentage of it. It happens all over the place. It just isn't in Canada yet. And they are.
What other country? UK, right?
The UK, yes.
How long has it been in place there?
I don't know the exact number, but I know that even at auction when works are sold, and I personally work with private collectors as well, so in seeing those numbers that come in, I see the number that goes to whatever estate.
Okay.
So I think it would be great, because whether it goes
What's the holdup here?
I don't know. I can't answer that. There's others that can. It's just not me. That's a diplomatic way of saying it.
That's funny. I guess going back to Shannon as a collector, how do you decide whether to add something to the collection or not?
Oh, I just did this, and we have a show on. I love the artist's work. I stand behind the work, and we put the show up, and I was like, we have to have that, and we've done that throughout the years. because I would be so sad if I didn't. And there's lots of pieces that get out the door. I try not to be the first to choose for the sake that others can choose too, and you don't want to take the best of anything. You are there to offer it to others. Also, it's just, that's a bad business model if you're just the person buying it. But I know that I've regretted it. And I will say that thing about original art is it's like a double-edged sword. There's only one of them, and there's only one of them. And so when you pass on it and you think about it and go, you know what, I don't want to, and then somebody else hops on it, it's often then they go, that's the one.
The FOMO's harder when somebody else gets it.
Yeah,
right?
it's harder, and that's the only one. Like, it will always be the measure. So often you come back and say, do you remember when that artist had this one? And that's the measure. They can find something around it, but it is the comparison.
Is there one or two that you can think of that are like the big regrets of like, why
didn't I do that? Yeah.
What?
It's in your house.
No.
Yeah, the big one of marigolds.
Oh.
And it's just for the sake, we didn't have a wall large enough for it, but that is probably one of the biggest. And I'm not even saying that to blow hot air.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. That's part of it. I'm glad I get to still see it. That is another thing, is that when you know where all these things go. And so as a dealer, and because a lot of the artists that we work with, those works get asked to be borrowed for institutional exhibitions and museums. And so that is part of what a gallerist does, is that we find them and we connect them, and then they get to be seen in the public also. So,
speaking of marigold, what is the Sobey Art Award?
Sobey Art Award is one of the most prestigious art awards in the country, actually in the world.
Yeah.
It happens every year. It's been in play since, I think, 2002, from the Sobey Foundation, as in the grocery magnet.
Yeah.
And then later on partnered with the National Gallery of Canada. And so for a number of years, it was only under 40 years old for emerging artists that are to really get a step up onto a more world stage. And so artists get submitted. There's a number of, it's changed this past year. So there's the Pacific, Prairies, Circumpolar, Quebec, Ontario, and the East Coast.
Yep.
People get longlisted, so between 4 and 5. Again, I'd have to do my math on that because it did change this year.
For every little sub-region.
For every region, and then from that, it's one from every region, so that's the short list, and then there's inevitably one artist that wins in the end. So it's quite the process. There's jurors from across the country. They meet. There's museums and curators that submit these artists, work with these artists. It's really a cross-country phenomenon, really.
And so, who are the artists that are longlisted?
Oh my gosh! Well, last year, I can proudly say that one of our artists, Kabluziak, was the winner of it. That was the second time that they had been shortlisted for it, so they were shortlisted in 2019. And then last year it won. So within the long list, you win $10,000. Within the short list, you win $25,000. And as the final winner, it's $100,000, which is life-changing for a young artist to win $100,000.
Yeah.
$25,000. Like, those are big things. And remove security is like a huge thing for artists. Knowing, for those artists that, again, if we go back to that live, breathe, everything art, there's a struggle with it.
Yeah.
And so something like the Sobey Prize can change people's lives.
Yeah.
And so last year was pretty big. And I know when 2024 came around, I said to Jaros, I was like, how do we top that year? Like, 2024 is going to suck. I don't know how we do it better. And I'm, proud to say that this year we actually have 3 artists that were shortlisted. So,
And who are they?
Marigold Santos, Erica Ayers, and Carrie Ellison. And actually, one of our next exhibitions is with Kablusiak, the winner of last year, and Audie Murray, who's also been shortlisted. So, yeah, I'm pretty chuffed. I will toot my own horn in that way, but it's, at the end of the day, not my work. It's their work.
Yeah.
And we get to come along for the ride.
Describe a little bit about each artist.
Oh, Marigold is on the screen behind us. She's a Filipinx artist from Calgary. Her work paintings deal with diasporic stories and nature of her Filipino background. Intricate painting, beautiful sculpture. We have a show in the fall. Kablusiak also is a Nook artist. I guess I'm throwing Kablusiak in with this year. But a Nook artist. Again, sculpture, a lot of humor, but also some tragedy and looking at the bigger cultural significance of Inuit art. Erica Ayers is a ceramicist who is from Winnipeg but lives and works in Glasgow. Ceramics, painting, funny. I will say that's one of the things I'm often drawn to is humor somehow within the art and the storytelling.
That's just one of your biases?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, exactly. And beautifully made things.
Yeah.
And Carrie Allison. Carrie Allison is a Métis artist that lives in Nova Scotia now. From Treaty 8, so northern Alberta, but lives in Nova Scotia. So not all of them are in the prairies, but they filter down to the gallery.
And then how long has the show of the finalists been at the National Gallery?
Like in the past year? It's changed over time.
Because I went in 2023.
Yes.
It was great. Like massive space. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a great show.
How long has it been?
I'm not quite sure about it. I know at times they've tried to, in 2019, they actually did it at the Art Gallery of Alberta. So they were working with other institutions that are partners through the National Gallery. So they were trying to make it more inclusive and reach a broader audience in showing all across. But this past, I think that was pre-pandemic, so it makes more sense that it does go to the National Gallery. And there's no greater honor than to be at the National Gallery of Canada. So, I know I should probably buy a lottery ticket. I haven't bought a lottery ticket, but those are pretty good odds. I'm not a numbers person, so they'll have to do that one for me.
I want to ask you about public art. Should there be public art?
Yes.
In a city?
Yes. But there should be public art. But to that same extent of looking at... There are lots of, whether it's civic, is that what we're talking about? Yeah. They put committees together and how these things happen, and some of them work and some of them
Should it
don't
be a
work.
committee or should it be a dictatorship?
The committee doesn't necessarily work as far as I'm concerned as well. In that case, unless all of the people are actually professionals in that field.
Yeah.
So I was trying to, in hindsight, look at the Sobey thing and going, oh, well, that's a committee.
Oh, that works.
That works, but they're all professionals. They all speak it, they all read it, they all understand it, and they can come to it with an understanding. It is not the same thing when dealing with public art that way. So I do think that there should be those that are, you wouldn't bring somebody in to do your plumbing that wasn't a plumber. You wouldn't bring, that's the part I think a lot of us in the arts might have a problem with, is that should be taken into consideration.
So let's say the city of Calgary approaches you and says, you're in charge now. What do you do?
Oh.
Do you set up a Sobey-like committee?
Yeah, I would refer to two professionals for sure that have different perspectives and definitely different perspectives. And I would look at what is out there. I think that is one of the things that is gutting, is that there's work still going up around the city. And there are some professionals that are also in those positions. But where are the women? Where are the women at in these big commissions? Where are the women at? Where's the cultural diversity? Where are the Indigenous artists? Where is that happening? No offense, we just don't need more of the same. This is a city that is for everyone. And so I know it sounds hypocritical to go, oh, put the professionals, but put the professionals and then bring some more professionals together so they can have conversation and go, okay, what do we already have? What have we only been putting forward? How do we bring it more perspectives that are not so biased as they are right now? And who's benefiting?
True.
Which is why I wouldn't be the professional that they should come to with that. Because if it's my artists, I'm benefiting.
Sure.
So there's others that.
Yeah, you'd have to recuse yourself.
Yes, exactly.
What part of the city do you think could use the most activation?
This is art adjacent questions that now you're making me think. That is a good question. I mean, I do like going along the river, seeing the works. I love something that takes me to something else. But I do understand that there's, in the program that we have right now, there's work being built in areas that there's buildings going up or projects being, I don't think that's necessarily the best idea. I don't need to see something under an overpass.
Right.
Personally. That might not be what everyone feels, but that is my personal thing. I would like to go and stand in front of something and read about it and contemplate it as opposed to drive by it at 70 miles per hour.
Right. Fair.
Right? I think there's sculpture gardens. I mean, you think when you visit other cities, I will say that I don't go walking around to just see work at other cities. You usually go to a destination and there's a number of works. That would be great.
Yeah.
That brings a bigger population to that area too.
Yeah.
They are there for a specific reason.
As a destination.
Yeah, for sure.
Is Instagram awesome or a hellscape?
Both. Love it, hate it, obsessed with it, the bane of my existence. I mean, it's great because I think, and talking to artists that might not have representation, a lot of them will say, it's the only place that somebody can see my work. I'm not on a wall. I'm not in a museum. And so...
Have you found an artist on Instagram?
I haven't found one, but I know of them.
Yeah.
And some use it to their benefit, and some use it as a platform to show their work. And I mean, also just artists generally, it's a bit more bold than saying, come into my studio, because you can get rid of all the fluff that's in the studio. But artists, I have heard them say this is the only time that somebody can see the work, which you can't diss that. But the hellscape part is like all the other stuff, and that would say that that's where like comparison comes into, and obsessing about something comes into, and the immediacy of it, and the lack of story too. You just see something, and I often say some great artwork photographs poorly, and some poor work photographs great, and often it's not until you get to stand in front of it that you see what it's actually made of.
Actually, what work that has passed through the gallery in the past year you actually really physically need to see in person? Is there something that really stands up where it's like, it doesn't really matter how we photograph this thing, you need to see it?
Sean Tall, who's a young emerging artist that we just started working with, his show is on right now. They're these incredibly intricate, meticulous graphite drawings, and they need to be seen. Like, just there's so many layers in the darkness of the color and the shape and the texture that doesn't translate nearly as well. I think our next exhibition that'll come up with Kalusiak and Audie will be one of those ones that needs to be seen. It's more installation-based work, and so generally with installation, you have to be in the room.
Yeah.
So it's not a soul-specific object. It's that you have to be surrounded by the work and
Yeah.
experience it on a different level.
What there must be works that are almost, I don't want to say necessarily an acquired taste, but like over time actually you develop a higher appreciation for.
The slow burns. The slow burns. Yeah, there's some work over the years and some artists' work that immediately I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I mean, I can have the artist have a conversation, and it might be that they can't explain it so well, so you have to sit with it a little bit longer, and eventually, in seeing more of it, then you're like, oh, I get this, this, and this because of that next viewing or that next look or that next peek at what they're working on. And
Is there a particular artist that
I think Robin Arsenault is one of those artists,
Okay.
and you could maybe speak to it that her material choice is like exquisite, and she works in so many different ways, and she works on so many different scales, and if she works in series of work that it's say 7 to 12 of just this, and that 7 to 12 makes sense for the next 5 to 8, and that 5 to 8 makes sense for the next 13, and they're not the same series, but they do spell out her language and they tell her story a little bit better and what she's working with when you see all of those things. And those slow burns, they tend to be like, oh yeah, I love this. And I've said no to work in the past. I mean, even works that have come into the house for two. I mean, it's hard for two people to agree on the same artwork. Gallerists included, collectors included, husband and wives included, partners included. And Jarvis has said, this is the one. And I'm going, okay, I trust your judgment in that.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. And over time, I'm just like, oh yeah, he was right.
I think for me, for Robin's work, it's not a slow burn. It's more of a crescendo.
Ah,
Yeah.
I love that.
I think that's a better way to describe it.
Did it make sense to you off the bat?
No, not necessarily. Or a little bit. But then over time, like spending more time with it, it just, there's a sense of presence and intentionality. And, yeah, it's the crescendos.
Okay. She'll love to hear that.
Maybe she'll listen.
Yeah, maybe she will.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Back to Instagram.
Oh.
What is your process for curating memes?
Oh, myself personally? So
Yeah.
I have my personal account and then I have the gallery account.
Yeah.
And
Slightly different tone.
very, right? Have to. I think I have to. Or at least I've become conscious of it. And for years I was like, can I blend these
The gallery
two?
account kind of has a necktie.
It does, and I don't. But that's why, yeah, you never know. And I am aware of what, and I think everyone should be aware. Like, you associate with somebody, you have a responsibility to somebody, and I have a responsibility to somebody's career, and I have a responsibility to somebody's work. And so my personal thing should be off to the side in the galleries. So I try to differentiate it.
Yeah.
I'm sure more people would say, show more of your own personality on the other. But it would then be my personality. It wouldn't necessarily be Jarvis's, and the two would be a third baby monster, if that was the case.
So if you could only, how do I
Do
ask
one?
this? Yeah, if you could only do one, cat memes or cigarette memes, what would it
And
be?
I don't smoke, but I would love to. I did for years. The cats bring me joy. I mean, they do say they've also ruined the internet, so I get that part, but
So you're part of ruining the internet?
I am, for sure. That is the hellscape. But I think you build a community and friends. It's shocking. Like, it's shocking you can create a broken friendship with somebody you've never met just based on your unhinged personality on social media. And it's like, I feel like I know this person, which is terrifying. And they do. They probably know like a far more subconscious you
Yeah.
than the one that is more the necktie on the other side.
Amazing. Should people come visit you at Norberg Hall?
Yes, I would hope so. I mean, we're always trying to break down those barriers of walking through the door, and
Yeah.
it's welcome to everyone, both, and the conversations, I would like that to be known, that we're not that gallery that you walk in and nobody says hello to. What can we talk to you about? What can we help you with? How can we further the dialogue of what they may not understand and what we're not describing well enough? And because you never know. We all have these communities, and the artists have them, the galleries have them, you yourself have them, and it's a bit like having an ambassador and you bringing somebody in that you and I have a relationship, but I might not with the other person. And so, heaven forbid they follow me on Instagram and they don't know like what we actually do. And so I'm hoping that you will give me some amount of cred just getting them through the door. But yeah, the online is one thing, but the meeting in real life is something different. And so you hope to come see the work in real life and come to openings. And they are for everyone. Like an opening at a gallery, which generally happens on a Friday night. It's for 2 hours. It's the celebration of an artist's work that finally gets open to the public. It is for everybody. It is for all walks of life to come through the door, raise a glass, and celebrate a momentous occasion.
Do you guys have storage at your house even? Oh, no, I guess you could just bring it to the gallery.
No, we actually, we have, I wouldn't say we have storage, but we have stacks of artwork. We've converted rooms into things.
Yeah.
But we do have some of the work at the gallery. Not very much, though, to be honest with you. You've taken most of it home. Other than things that have to get framed. And that's a whole different story, too. That's like the idea of, is it the shoemaker's son not having shoes? Anything we purchase ends up being framed like 5 years from now for the sake that everybody else's stuff is in the queue.
Yeah.
And so I'll get mine maybe for Christmas next year.
At this point, are you guys even collecting anything that's not emerging?
Oh, that's a great question. Every once in a while we will acquire something at auction if there's something that Jarvis sees. But I find that even those works generally have something to do with maybe like it hits some sort of sentimental something.
Oh, like some piece of nostalgia?
Nostalgia, but of an artist, though. It might be somebody he remembers as he was a kid or through family or that they just come up and he's like, oh, by the way, we got this. And it's like, okay. All right, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. Every year we acquire a couple of pieces.
Yeah.
One to support the artist, and two because I can't live without it. And
I don't know why more collectors don't think of it in this way. In that, like, and maybe a bunch do, but like, the work doesn't exist unless you collect it early on.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and it's
like you just the way the economics of the whole thing works. Like the funding can't be entirely public. It has to come from private collectors also.
And there's something to be built upon. So the artist, even if we think about like funding, if they're applying for grants or Canada Council or anything like that, like they need shows. So one, they need to make the work, or they need the work, and then they need to have the shows to show the work.
Yeah.
And all of these things go together in order to all go together. And so by supporting a young emerging artist, you are helping them in so many ways that is greater than just putting something on your wall.
Yeah.
And yeah, it may pay off later. I guess, yeah. I mean, if you think about
I think the way you're thinking about things too, it's like if you like the work, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, like work.
Well, I shouldn't say that. For payoff later, we're talking about two different things, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, one like there's contributing to their career, and then also just like the value of the work.
The value.
But you guys don't sell anything really anyway, right?
Like ourselves personally.
Yeah.
No, we haven't. maybe one or two. And that's, collections change. And museum collections, that's why they deaccession, is that for a number of years, well, say this, let me just jump back. One of those things that I say to a lot of collectors that are looking at their collections now and going, oh, my collection is predominantly white and male, or as I've heard somebody say, pale, male, and stale. And now they're trying to change it and go, well, I didn't know. And I'm like, I understand. You didn't know. You were not offered something else. Went to a gallery, you worked with people, and this is what you saw. So this is all you had to choose from. And so I can't.
It's this vicious cycle, right? So like, oh, the gallery's like, well, this is what's selling, but then the buyer's like, well, this is what was on offer.
On offer, and the gallery's like, this is what I have to sell in order to keep the doors open.
Yeah.
And so we all figure out a different model of how to do it. And I think those models are getting changed time and time again. And I will say that when, it was Jarvis Hall Gallery for a number of years, and I'm asked fairly regularly to speaking on why gender equity matters and how it does change and how putting it to practice. And so shortly thereafter, the pandemic starting, Jarvis goes, I hate the fact that you get asked to speak on gender equality under my name. And so he said, we have got to change the name of this. And that is putting it into practice.
That was the catalyst.
That was the catalyst. And so in going through all of that, it's a bit like losing your wallet when, of course, you rebrand, when you change, especially when you've been something for 15 years. And working with a company that was asking hard questions like, what were you in the past and what do you want to be in the future and where are we at? And the pandemic really helped shape or made all of us think outside of the box. They're like, are you a gallery? Yes. Do you do consulting? Well, also. Are you a frame shop? Yeah. Okay, so we're not putting any of those words on it because you don't know. If anything COVID has told us and taught us is that sometimes we have to change quickly. And so don't put gallery on the end of it. You're Norberg Hall. And so it's the two of you.
You're a lifestyle.
You're a lifestyle. You're a lifestyle. This is a way of living. It's late night and caffeine fueled. But yeah, I thought that was quite profound and going, oh yeah, we do. You never know what tomorrow is going to bring. And it's not.
You can't even find the consultation business part on the website, can you?
No, that's something that ends up being more of a.
Do you even offer to actively?
If you would want it, yes. And so.
So what can that look like?
That can look like working with other galleries to acquire pieces.
Yeah.
Doing cataloging work, photographing work, creating work, traveling with work. I did a bit of it this past year. Also around the world of literally accompanying work as it traveled from one place to the next. So
the handcuffs.
Yeah, exactly. It was so 007. But yeah, it is, there's ways that, again, facilitate and help us work with underrepresented artists, but that's something that we will do in order to make that work. So that we don't have to bulk up the roster with established artists for now that have been doing it for this long that it gives those other artists an opportunity and a chance.
Yeah.
And things change. I mean, rosters change, relationships change. And I think...
Who's best-selling at this point?
Oh, that's curious. I don't want to name names of who is best selling. Edit it out. What I find now is that we've worked with a number of artists for a number of years. And so the success that comes, and I mean, everything is, what is success, I think is a valid question. Often people think like monetary success is the only one.
Because it could very well be a story being told that was not being told now, but then is very much part of the conversation.
Right.
And
Exactly.
That could be a huge success.
A huge success. Awards can be a huge success, but they don't necessarily mean that it's a monetary downfall upon anyone. It just means that finally they've got the accolades, and it builds upon it. Every little bit helps. There's no denying that. But I had somebody recently refer to me, as like a farm team. And at first I was like really offended by it. And I was like, why? Because we have given the opportunity, or because we've been able to work with artists from the start and over time, it gives
Facilitate their
it
development.
facilitates. Now there's other museums, galleries that are abroad that go, oh, this is the thing. And it's like, yeah, I know, I've said it's the thing for 10 years. And now they're like, but it is. And so the market in the country isn't as big as what we'd all like it to be. And
Do you have any international buyers yet?
yeah, we do. People reach out. Actually, that's a COVID thing, that when you do go online, that they reach out from all over the place.
Yeah.
But that farm team mentality, I mean, it was upsetting to begin with. It's not as upsetting. Maybe I wouldn't think it's that. Maybe I think it's like seeing talent or taste making or any of those things that I'll try and like soften the edges off of.
I think that's actually more interesting.
Yeah, the farm team. I was like, first of all, I don't
It's
understand
just like
hockey, but
you see something first.
yes, and willing to
yeah.
stand behind it. And yeah, so, but again, it's still the artwork at the end of the day. Like, as much as Norberg Hall and the gallery is one thing, we're merely just a foundation to try and build something bigger for those artist names that stand upon us.
Yeah.
Or how we can help shoulder that and how we can help.
Just allow them to do the work, and then you do the
Totally.
rest.
And not edit. That's the one thing.
Yeah.
Like, that is one thing that...
Or lightly edit?
yeah, I guess so, to a degree. I've never tried...
Nudge?
Maybe nudge, maybe show a different option of, I get this is where you're going. Have you considered this? And then, because often, I mean, it's the same for ourselves.
It's like the best. There's like this best quote about like the best editors or something like that they can point out something when it's not quite right, but then not actually offer
the thing,
the solution.
Yes, exactly. I try to be better at that and not saying it's this. It's like, but there's this. Have you seen, or can you see this other perspective or view or point of view, and how do you see this all now as a whole? But that is, I mean, you have to give the artist credit in knowing what they're making and what they're saying. And so at a certain point, you have to just let them do it, because I know there's been times that I've just gone, woof, and it's the thing. I will say that. It was, somebody else was able to read it far better than I was.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, at the time, I couldn't. And then I went, oh, yeah. I might have been too close to it, too. Much like the artist.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Energy Untold. Energy Untold is produced by Shortline Creative and recorded at GBE Energy. Art is curated with the assistance of Norberg Hall. For more information on the show, visit energyuntold.com. We would love your feedback. Send us a message at hello@energyuntold.com. Thank you again, and until next time, I am Corey Paddock.